Okay. So you look beautiful. Everything is hunky-dory. You don't have to worry about staying stiff or anything because there's room around you. Okay. So.
I can't believe this.
So.
She flew out here for this, Rose.
Oh my God.
This is why I came out here, you know?
Oh.
I know. Okay. So here we are. And so Aunt Rose and Mommy. So the whole, as I said, the whole point of today is just to sort of record your remembrances of Grandma and Grandpa Pavlin, what you remember as kids, what you remember about anything that you remember about them. So we can start with, I think a good place to start, because Mommy and I were talking about this anyway earlier today, was about the house on Ormond. So Aunt Rose, what do you remember about the house on Ormond? Like being a little kid, growing up there, do you remember how it was, like what the house was like, or what you felt?
Yeah, I can see the house in my mind.
Yeah?
You know, I don't know.
Well, tell them about, because the houses were only like about this far apart.
Right.
Yeah.
And she came home one day and tell them what you saw.
What did I see? Tell me.
You said you looked in the basement window of
Oh,
the
I see,
Jimenez's.
What?
You know, we use the same in between houses to get
A
into
walkway.
our backyards. And I seen Audrey, I think it was, and she was laying on the couch dead.
Dead? And that was
And
your...
I didn't know she was dead till they said she was dead, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And right after I said that, then they covered up the window.
Really?
I mean, you know, they covered up the window so we couldn't see.
So nobody knew that she was dead, or nobody had
we
seen
didn't know
that?
anything about it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was the craziest.
Did they
you know.
have a funeral for her?
I don't even remember. But I know that she was laying on the couch there, you know, and I come in and told Ma, and then right after we told Ma, boy, they covered that window up, you know, and never did hear any more about it.
Did your mom go out next door to tell them?
We never messed with them.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's a
They were
big,
tough cookies, Cynthia.
Yeah.
you know, no.
So did all the people that lived around you, did they work at the steel mill? Do you know where they worked?
I don't know. The colored man lived next door, and the Jimenezes lived on the other side. Remember?
Yeah, and then there was Mrs. Pavlovsky.
Yeah, Pavlovsky. Yeah.
So,
And then-
oh no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I don't know. We knew everybody on the block. You know what I mean?
Right.
What their names were and everything. You know.
Right.
And the Bessemer ditch was right at the corner.
Right, I remember. So do you remember like playing with the kids in the neighborhood?
I don't know. The Jimenezes were kind of, the folks didn't want us to mess with them, you know. So we never did, you know what I mean. But we never had no arguments or anything.
Right.
But we just didn't have anything to do with them, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, the folks would say. And then Pavlovskys lived on the other side, remember?
Huh? Were they Pavlovskys? Were they Polish?
I don't know.
He was Polish.
And she was Italian. Yeah.
Italian. Oh, okay.
And then the Nemecks lived, you know.
Next door to them.
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Pavlovsky used to sew,
Uh-huh.
and she made me a skirt one time out of the material that they would use for tabletops.
Oh, right.
Well, I don't remember, what was that stuff, Rose?
Oilcloth?
Oilcloth.
Oh, right.
And I was so thrilled with it because it was so shiny.
But it was like all stiff, right?
Yeah.
That oil
Oh my
But she
gosh.
made me a skirt or a dress, I don't remember which, but I was so thrilled with it.
Yeah.
And then the blacks lived across the street.
And they
you
were
know.
crazy as
And you know
loons.
what? Like the old man, he was so skinny, and he'd come right in the middle of practically on the street, and he'd start preaching, you know. And she was in the back, and she'd yell, yelling at the kids, you know, for doing stuff. And he was trying to, you know, preach on the corner.
But they were
Really,
they
you
were
know.
from the South,
Yeah.
Cynthia.
Right.
And they were, I think, all of them mentally retarded. But she'd chase him with a butcher knife.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yes, and the neighbors, we just sat around and watched
And
and
you know what?
laughed.
And then we walked across the street. I'll never forget this. Mr. Black was so skinny and scrawny, you know, and he would talk so soft and nice. And we was back there, and he had a stick, and they had a mattress laid on top of something, and they were bed bugs in that mattress, and he didn't want them killed. He just kept moving them around, and everything. And we lived through some crazy stuff.
I mean, it was like something
Never
out
thought
of,
anything about it.
it was something so bizarre that
Yeah.
in retrospect you think, oh my God, they were just,
And then he would be so gentle and kind, and she'd be out practically on the curb, yelling at her kids
Screaming.
or something, screaming.
The other thing she would do, Cynthia, is that she loved pork chops.
Yeah, and she'd lock herself in that room.
She
Remember?
would cook them, and they had all these kids, and she'd cook them, go into her bedroom to eat them, and lock the door.
She wouldn't give them to the kids.
Yeah, she would give it to the kids.
And then the other thing was, one time we were never allowed in their bedroom.
Right.
And one day I went over there, and the door was open. So of course, being a kid, I had to see what was in there.
Right.
And she collected magazines and patterns and fabric.
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia stacked to the ceiling.
This is the one you told me, and there was like a barely a pathway to the bed.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to boot, her side of the bed had a sheet and his didn't. Because he'd get it dirty, she said.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was, and you think about it now, we just accepted it, you
Yeah.
know.
Right. It was just very normal.
I mean, it was very normal. We were
Yeah.
accustomed to them.
Right.
But
Oh my gosh.
pretty wild.
Anyhow, Mr. Black was so skinny, and we'd run across there, and he had an old mattress that they took out of their bedroom, and he had a stick or something, and there were a bunch of bed bugs, and I never seen a bed bug before, we never, and he didn't want them killed. He'd move them around in there, and he talked real gentle, you know what I mean? It was kind
And
of
then the
crazy.
other thing
We
is-
never thought nothing about it.
Here our mom was so clean.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I can remember going into they had a coal stove. Going into the kitchen was filthy, Cynthia. It's like white trash, really white trash. And I opened the cupboard to get a glass, and the cockroaches were.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was just
Oh my
awful,
God.
awful,
I
awful.
know. And he was out there, like I said, he had an old mattress out there they took out of the house, and he had a stick, and it was full of bed bugs, and I'd never seen a bed bug before. And we were watching him, and he didn't want them killed. He just kept moving them around, I remember
Are you
that.
aware that you just told that story for
I
the
did,
third
see?
time?
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So wait, so Aunt Rose, what's your earliest memory living in that house?
I don't know. We never used the dining room or front room. Always kept it clean, We had a glass door between the kitchen and the dining room, and we could look out that way, But we never used the living
We
room.
lived in the kitchen.
In the kitchen, yeah.
So
And-
that was the living room like for guests or something like that?
I don't know. Just
Yes, but we never had any.
we never had any guests or no. People didn't come like they do now,
So was that like something that a lot of Slovenian families did?
Probably.
Yeah,
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
They were, we had a leather couch and the two chairs. I could still see them in my mind.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that that Grandpa Pavlin went to New York to.
He didn't go to New York.
Well, but there was something about
Well,
New
she
York. that
landed
was-
in New
she
York,
landed, yeah.
Cynthia.
But
Yeah.
how did? So do you remember how it was that she came? Did he write back home?
I don't know. They never did discuss it.
You don't know if like
Uh-uh.
they knew each other when they
No,
were.
I don't know if
They
they
don't
knew
know
it.
for sure,
Yeah.
Cynthia.
Yeah.
We never discussed it. We never asked, and they never told us. You know what I mean?
Right. Did they ever talk about their own parents? Because there's such a difference in age between you guys.
Yeah.
That maybe when you were younger, they talked about their parents or their families or anything like that.
Never talked about anything. Do you remember anything?
Nothing from the old country.
Nothing.
But I do know this, that during the war,
In the 60s, I remember we would send care packages.
we sent, oh my God, I think hundreds of care packages.
Huh.
Because we used to have to walk them to the post office,
Right.
and the post office was down in Bessemer.
Yeah, we'd go through the Bessemer Park.
Yeah, but
Right,
my
right.
mother, I will say this, God, I think we sent a package a week, Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not just clothing, but food, like coffee, sugar, stuff like that.
Was this like? Because I remember in the 60s you guys doing that, but did you do it earlier too? Do you remember?
Well, we did it for a long time, Cynthia. Can't tell you exactly how long.
Right.
But my mom was really diligent about that, And that was when she was communicating with them over there.
But isn't it so funny? She's communicating with them, and yet she doesn't tell you who
Listen,
they
I never knew
are.
anything about them. Did you?
Or
Well, at the time, I knew some were aunts and some were,
Oh, yeah.
and what have you. But
right, but you didn't know their
No.
names, or she didn't talk about. It's so
at
interesting.
that time, I knew their names, Cynthia.
Right.
But, you know, it's like we never had an address or anything. That was all in Elsie's book.
Right. Where whoever knows where that is.
But,
So Aunt Rose, one of the things that Mommy and I discovered today, this morning, she had gotten from a Robert Pavlin in Boise, Idaho,
Huh.
but this is like 14 years ago, in 2002. He had done this whole genealogical thing
Robert
about your
did?
family.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Do you know him?
Robert, yeah, I remember him.
So, so when we were going through this, so this is for Grandpa Pavlin's father,
Oh.
Tomas Pavlin, right? And it says he was born in Yugoslavia in 1860, and he died in Yugoslavia in 1920. And he married Maria Cernel, Sernel.
Cernel.
Right? And Mommy said, wait a minute, there was a Cernel.
remember Jenny?
Jenny and her
And
husband.
Yuzha?
Joe.
Joe, right.
Cernel. Yeah.
And so we were thinking that because their last name was Cernel, that Joe must have been Maria's brother. Does that make sense?
I don't know how that's possible, Cynthia, because Joe Cernel was Serbian.
Maybe Maria Cernel was Serbian. But it's just a coincidence that they both
Yeah.
had the same last name, right?
Right.
Who was Mario? I don't remember no Mario, do you?
So because if your grandparents were Tomas and Maria, who you never knew,
I never knew.
right? And if Maria's maiden name was Cernel, and these people you know, their last name was Cernel.
Well, somehow they must have been related.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, we found that kind of curious
Yeah.
about them. So let's see what else. Do you remember Grandpa going to work at the steel mill?
Yeah, he walked every morning, took a lunchbox, and walked down there. The Bessemer ditch was at the corner,
Right.
and he'd walk down that like an alley,
Like
you
the
know what
path
I mean?
along, yeah.
and walk to work every day. Yeah,
And do you remember? Do you know like what he did at the steel mill?
No,
Did he
I
ever
don't
talk
know.
about what he did?
but he was so faithful, you know. And Maud put, I'll never forget, Twinkies in his lunchbox and a sandwich, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I could still see his lunchbox. It was different. And we'd meet him at the Bessemer ditch when he got off, and he'd bring that Twinkie back for Elsie and I to share.
Oh, so
Poor
he
thing,
never
you know.
he never ate his Twinkie.
No.
Oh,
You
my-
know.
He saved it for a
And
treat
then
for
not
them.
only that, then I could still see the table and then the bench in the kitchen on Ormond.
Mm-hmm.
And on Saturdays, Ma would make him eggs, you know. And he'd have a plate of eggs, about four eggs, you know. And Elsie and I would sit on the bench across from him. Come on, Chirka. That means come on, daughters. And she'd give us homemade bread, and he'd let us dip the yellow out of the egg because we liked it, you know. And then he'd eat the white.
Right.
Yeah, and poor thing, she'd put a Twinkie in his lunchbox, and he'd always bring it back for Elsie and I
know,
to
that's so
share a Twinkie.
Now, did you know, Mommy was talking about, she remembers sitting on the stool by the stove, by the coal furnace.
That bench, remember?
Remember?
The bench, yeah,
and,
that's
and
the
eating
bench.
and eating there. And I said, well, didn't you all eat together as a family? But do you remember sitting at a table and eating? Or
Yeah,
did
we
you?
had that long bench, you know, and Dad sit on this side and Elsie and I on this side. You know what I mean? I remember that, don't you?
I don't remember a table at all.
Yeah, it was.
Was it in the center of the kitchen?
No, it was at the corner, by the end of the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was, what do you call it, like enamel table, and then the bench, you know. Yeah.
So did you and Aunt Elsie, did you sleep in the porch behind?
Yeah, we slept together in the bed on the porch.
So what happened when Mommy was born? Where did she sleep? Because she remembers sleeping on the porch also.
Yeah.
But she thinks that by then you two married and were gone?
I don't know, but we slept on the porch, yeah, and they had a basement, and they had a, they opened it, go down in the basement. They didn't sleep down there, but, and the bed was over here, and Elsie and I slept there.
So do you remember Mommy sleeping there with you
No,
all in
I
that
don't.
room?
Do you remember me?
No. But I do know that I had a cot out there.
On the porch?
Yeah, on the porch. So I must have slept on the cot and you guys slept
Yeah,
on the bed.
yeah, probably, yeah. I can still see the back porch in my mind.
Because, Cynthia, the porch or the basement door was the floor.
The floor, and you lifted up the floor like that and
Oh,
walked
okay.
downstairs,
Yeah.
Yeah, I can still see it in my mind.
So
Yeah.
was it a big room? Like, was it as big as
Oh,
this
no.
room?
About half the size
Half
of
the
this
size?
room.
Mm-hmm. And then did it have a door to the outside then?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So it must have been freezing in there.
I don't know, we never complained. Huh?
No, we just endured. I don't remember being cold, Cynthia.
Huh. I mean, because I guess in my mind I have this idea of glass windows,
Yeah.
like
It
half
had-
windows.
Yeah, it
and,
did.
It did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it didn't. It wasn't cold or
We were
anything.
hardy.
Well, it might be that the heat from the kitchen, which was right there,
Could be.
you
I
left the
could have
door
helped,
open,
yeah.
and then it just
Yeah.
kind of heated that up a little bit.
I remember when they got the stove, they put it in the dining room, to warm the house. We thought that was the most wonderful thing in the world.
No, you told me about the stove in the dining room, like a furnace in the dining, but you said you
It
never.
was just like it was a stove, like
Well, it was a heater.
a heater. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And then I can remember when Grandma got her, because she had been cooking on that coal stove,
Yeah,
and then she got an electric stove.
yeah, I remember.
Oh.
And oh my God, that just changed the world.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was a small one. Remember? It was a
and we
small
had it would be like in New York an apartment,
one.
Right.
Yeah.
but we had it in the house on Pine also.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So
I
do
remember
I-
that. Yeah.
I don't know that I remember.
Yeah.
And she had like a refrigerator with a block of ice in it. Was
No.
there?
No. It was just like a ice box.
Right. It was an ice box, so there was a block of ice that was in it. And it
Yeah, the man would come with the horse and the thing and have ice in there, and we'd leave the sign up and we'd meet him out there and he'd give us a chunk of ice. We paid for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you'd put it in the ice box.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So I can remember during the war, somebody that my dad knew worked at C.C. Anderson's. Remember that store?
Yeah, I do.
And they had an opportunity to buy a Kelvinator refrigerator. And I don't know how that happened during the war, but we got one, and that was just
Wonderful.
paradise.
So that was an electric refrigerator then, was
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And how we managed to get that during the war, I have
I
no
don't know.
idea, because everything was so scarce.
And you know what? My mother baked homemade bread all the time. We never knew what a store bread was.
Right.
And we always wanted a store bread to taste it. You know what? We
Right.
remember that. And a lot of people would eat the center and leave the crust, and I love the crust better than the center.
I do too. I
That's
do.
so
I still
funny.
do.
I
So
still do.
funny.
Yeah.